Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek and I got a special treat for you guys today. That is because I'm taking another look at the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess PC port. We're not talking about Dusklight, we're talking about Courage Reborn. And that was the one I first demoed on the channel, but obviously Dusklight has been out, been updated, improved, and is an absolutely outstanding 10 out of 10 PC port. But there is another one on the way, and I'm taking a look at a test build right now and showing it off to you guys. That is because Linefadomra, Harbour Masters, and everyone else involved in this project is doing an absolutely epic job getting everything taken care of, buttoned up, and ready for a very fun experience. And I'll talk about the top notes improvements here just so you guys understand what's going on. If you notice, obviously this is running at a higher frame rate than Twilight Princess ever did, but the difference between Dusklight and Courage Reborn is it's actually been redone in delta time, which is a mathematical equation from one frame to the next to deal with all of the logic, all of the animations, and everything else. And talking to one of the devs on this one, they have over 1 million change lines of code and just committed another 10,000 a few days ago. So what you're seeing here is not interpolation, it is a real internal frame rate running at the same time, and honestly, it is so incredibly smooth, it kind of feels a little bit like magic. Although the frame rate is so fast, sometimes I feel like I miss with my shots on my slingshot, but that's definitely a me problem, not a PC port problem. Before I get too much further involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And just so you know, while this does support texture packs, and I've shown them in previous Courage Reborn videos, I'm going with the stock textures here so you can see what the game looks like as you initially just boot it up with all of the original art assets that would be on your GameCube disc. And I will say, this is absolutely blowing me away by how smooth this truly is. I'll go over some of the additional options in just a moment because this thing has a lot of comprehensive ones and more on the way, but the overall fluidity in the frame rate, being a real, not interpolation based frame rate, is 11 out of 10 impressive, and I can't believe they've been able to actually pull this off. Because if you know how these things work, changing the frame rate when it's tied to logic can be incredibly difficult. And as far as setting this up when you do get a chance to do it, I definitely recommend you pick Courage Reborn with all the quality of life improvements, but it's extremely easy, has an amazing front end, and you're just basically off to the races once you add your disk image in and go ahead and tell it to ingest it. Now you might notice I am capturing an ultra wide right now, one because it is a vibe, and two, on this build, switching over to 16:9 windowed if you have an ultra wide monitor can be a little bit tricky. But honestly, just doing it in ultra wide kind of shows just how versatile this truly is. But you can change the frame cap, you can go original frame rate, you can basically go unlimited or pick from there, you can move the bloom up and down, you can do mirror mode just like you can if you're playing on Wii, not on the GameCube, and a ton of other video options that are definitely amazing. I put the internal rendering resolution up to this one on 4K, and it ran absolutely flawlessly on my PC. I had no hitches, I had no issues whatsoever, and there's comprehensive options for input for different enhancements. You can even skip certain segments in the game, like rounding up the sheep at the beginning if you just want to get in sooner. And honestly, skipping the sheep section is something I absolutely love because it always drives me nuts. I will say the one flaw I think the Twilight Princess has, and it really isn't that big of a flaw, is that the opening of the game kind of fights you to get into the actual action and maybe takes a little bit too long. So with Courage Reborn, being able to kind of move around and jump in where you'd like definitely makes a big difference. Now I'm just showing you guys kind of the beginning of the game so you can get a sense as a reintroduction to Courage Reborn, because it has been some months since I've talked about this. But the nice thing is, at least for saving, there's a comprehensive save file pack so you can jump anywhere into the game anytime you want. Well, look at Epona here, look at the animations, the camera movement, and everything else. That really is the #1 takeaway of this newest build of Courage Reborn. It just has a frame rate that absolutely is wild in capture, and if you have a high frame rate or refresh rate monitor, you're going to see just how incredible this looks, and it definitely helps when the camera pans around as well with some of the fluidity at the edges of the screen. But going into the village here, I am always impressed just how well these things work, and the fact that we're going to have 2 independent PC ports, Dusklight, which is already out, as well as Courage Reborn, which is getting close, I feel like, to a release. But I have not heard any date whatsoever. Just by playing this, it feels very close. Let's do the first of 2 soundtrack samples so you can catch some musical vibes and quality, and I'll be right back with a lot more. So you'll hear that the audio quality is extremely accurate, and also you'll see that we basically skipped over the entirety without pushing a button sequence of actually getting those sheep back into the pen, and that is something you can toggle on or off in the options, and it is a quality of life improvement. I love the fact that they were thinking about that as well, because it's one of those moments in the game. I've put those sheep back in their pen so many times, or maybe they're rams. Really, my understanding of animals isn't all that great, because I've captured this sequence in so many different builds of Dusklight and Courage Reborn that even I'm a little bit driven nuts by it. And of course, you're also going to get an analog free camera. You can set that to the right analog stick or however else you want it, and you're going to be able to play around with whatever you want. Again, there's no mods installed here because I want to talk about this in just its base vanilla version with the Courage Reborn enhancements and not try to play around too much, because again, it is still in active development. You'll see all these enhancements here, so many different options, including changing up the climbing speed, being able to walk fast in the iron boots, kind of just giving you ultimate control over every single granular option that this game could possibly have. Or if you want to go the straight vanilla experience and just play it the way Nintendo intended with nothing, you can pick vanilla and do that as well. But I love that Courage Reborn is giving the ultimate control to the player to decide how they want to experience this game, because if you played it before, maybe vanilla isn't for you, you want to just basically dial everything up to 11 and go with whatever you want. It really does allow you to kind of make those options and choices for yourself, and I absolutely love that. And next time I talk about this one, I will do some texture packs as well. And again, it's going to look basically identical to Dusklight with the texture pack because they are cross-compatible. Stuff like Henrico Magnifico's 4K texture pack, bringing in the Wii U version of the game. Those textures are going to appear the same on both builds, so it's not like you're going to see anything new. You will just see them running within the actual Courage Reborn engine. And now with Harbour Master's involvement, hopefully we're going to be seeing more of these PC ports in the future, because there's other GameCube games that are getting very close to 100% decompiled status, and it's work like this that's going to be foundational for a lot of these other ports in the future. But I will say Linefadomra, the entire team, as well as Harbour Masters are absolutely killing it with this one, and I can't wait for you guys to try it out because I am just hyper impressed. And I will say I never compare projects against each other. I am happy that two PC ports exist, but honestly, getting the actual non-interpolation frame rate here, something extra special that really just makes this game feel like 0.1% better than just doing it via interpolation. But that's really all I'll say. Again, both are incredible. As we come back out, seeing the color reproduction here, getting a little bit of the bloom, which you can dial up or down, all the way to 100, all the way to 0. It really lets you make the game look how you want it to look, not just play how you want it to play. And if you want, you can go 4x3 on this one at the original frame rate, keeping the bloom up with an actual internal rendering resolution of the original GameCube version, and just basically recreate that experience with all of these quality of life improvements as well. And if we go into the settings here and kind of play around with that bloom, you'll see I have it dialed all the way down to 0, but you can move it all the way up on a scale of 100 to basically make whatever experience you want in the game. But you tell me down below, bloom or no bloom, I would be curious. Let's do one more soundtrack sample so you can hear the audio quality again. I'll be right back to show you more of Courage Reborn and just how well it's shaping up, which is 10 out of 10 amazing. See, it just sounds like Twilight Princess in all the best ways possible, and I am impressed with the audio quality as well. And speaking of this kind of having to do widescreen, even though I like the ultra wide aspect ratio, the next build is apparently already fixed that, but I do need to cut these things off at some point in time, because if I waited for every new little fix before I actually did the voiceover, I would open this video up basically a dozen times before I actually was able to finalize it and find a release window before something else changed. But again, I totally understand that this is an internal testing build, and it isn't yet available to the public, and I know Linefadomra, Harbour Masters, and everyone else involved want that first release to be near perfect, and that's what they're working on. But there is very, very little quote-unquote wrong with this build. On some of the screen transitions, every once in a while there's a couple extra frames that need to be cleaned up, but otherwise you'd have to pixel peep the ever-loving hell out of something like this to actually see any sort of issue in the gameplay. Now again, I haven't played through this 100%. I'm sure there's a lot of testers out there going through the game comprehensively. When I test stuff, it's kind of just to talk to you about it, and if I find a bug or a glitch, I will report it over on Discord just so they're aware of it, but usually I find something that 10 other people have reported because so many different people have been playing and testing this one. But I just love the fact that in 2026 we're going to live in a world where there's not one but two Twilight Princess PC ports available, and honestly, the project ethos and overall set of features do differ relatively well from Dusklight to Courage Reborn, so there's going to be a reason to pick up and play either of them, and there's definitely going to be a reason to pick one over the other for you personally. But for me, I love that they both exist, and I am so stoked about that fact. And honestly, this is just the start of a lot of fun movement on GameCube stuff, decomp based PC source ports, as well as recomps, which I talked about earlier in the week. I think in the next 18 to 24 months, you're going to see multiple GameCube ports to PC from decompilations, as well as a metric ton of static recomps, and that just means that everyone is going to win. And honestly, I am impressed that they were able to get all these different developers working on these projects, because I'm sure in some way that's like herding cats. If you've never heard that expression before, it's a real expression. I'm not just using it because I am playing around and trying to herd this cat right now. But Courage Reborn is definitely shaping up nicely. Every single time I take a look at it, I am more and more impressed with just by how well it's doing. And I can't wait for you guys to play the finished version of this game, because this one's every bit as special as any other PC port we've gotten, maybe even more so. But short of that, go herd your cats. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.